Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're continuing our exploration into the structure of the human soul.
That's right.
Last time we introduced this idea of four fundamental elements: fire, spirit, water, and earth. And each has a basic function.
Fire was the force of destruction or consumption, the Coach-Hamschele.
Right, Coach Mchale. And spirit was movement, water sustenance, and earth stability, standing.
Exactly. Standing or stabilizing.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack that fire element because it sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It does, yeah.
Why would a core part of the soul be about, destroying things? How can something so potentially negative be, essential?
That's really the core question, isn't it? And like you said, fire's primary job is consuming or destroying.
Okay.
But, and this is key, the source material is very clear. It's not just about destroying bad things.
It's not.
No. Fire can, and sometimes does, consume good things too.
Okay, hold on. Why? Why would it consume good? That feels, wrong. Like something you'd want to put out immediately.
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. One crucial reason fire might consume something we see as good is actually lotsarekelia.
Lotsarekelia. For the sake of ascent.
Exactly. For ascent to a higher level.
Ascent. How can destroying something good help you go higher? Wouldn't that just leave you with, less?
Think about it like this, using an analogy the source sort of hints at. Imagine someone's really comfortable where they are.
Okay.
Metaphorically, their house. It's a good house, works fine.
Yeah.
But staying there actually stops them from striving for something more.
Like a goal. Or maybe understanding something new.
Precisely. Now, if that comfortable situation gets consumed somehow, maybe circumstances change, or maybe there's just this internal jolt of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, it's the fire.
That's the fire. It forces them to move, to look for something new, maybe something better.
So staying comfortable, even if it's good, can actually block growth. And fire is the thing that, shakes you out of that comfort zone.
Exactly. If staying put keeps you from reaching a higher potential than that current good state, well, it can be seen as barbarico.
Bad in its value.
Right. Bad in its value relative to the potential growth you're missing out on. Fire helps break that comfortable but ultimately limiting state.
So the key takeaway is that fire, this consuming force, is actually necessary for growth.
Yeah. Without it, we might just stay put. Forever.
Okay, I can see the constructive side now. The consuming that helps you grow. But didn't the source also have a pretty stark example from Scripture?
It did, yeah.
Showing that fire can just, burn things it shouldn't?
Absolutely. The example given is that fire burns thorns, katsim. That's necessary, good, like burning away negativity.
Sure.
They can also burn grain or standing crops, gadish okama. Those are positive things, productive things that should exist.
So that shows fire has this other side, a potentially destructive aspect that can be, misaimed.
Exactly. It can end up consuming good parts of ourselves or even parts of creation that really should remain.
So fire isn't just one thing. It works in different ways.
It does. And the discourse identifies basically three main ways the soul's fire operates when it comes to destruction or consumption.
Three ways.
First, consuming evil, burning thorns. That's necessary, positive.
Got it.
Second, consuming good for the sake of ascent. Breaking stagnation, also necessary, but you need to be careful.
Right, the growth aspect.
And third, consuming good unnecessarily. Just destructive fire burning good things that should exist. And that's definitely negative.
Okay. So a big part of this is figuring out which kind of fire is active in you or maybe around you.
That's a core insight, yeah. Recognizing which type of fire is burning. Because you handle them differently.
Right. So how do you manage something that powerful? Even the good kinds. You said even burning thorns can spread, right? Like a wildfire.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes that even the good fire burning evil, breaking stagnation, it needs limits.
Why limits?
Because the world and our souls, they're mixed. Ravitav moravim zibaze. Good and bad are all tangled up together. So if you just let fire run wild, it can burn everything. Good and bad alike.
Like that wildfire just taking down everything in its path, no distinction.
Yes, that's the danger. So fire needs controlled pathways, channels.
And how do you do that? How do you limit it?
The source says you use the other elements, water and earth.
Okay. A counterbalance. Like putting up physical barriers against a real fire?
That's the analogy, yeah. You don't necessarily pour water on the fire to kill it completely, at least not the useful types.
Right.
But you might use water around it to stop it spreading. or build earth barriers, like trenches, to contain it.
And in the soul, what does that look like practically?
In the soul, you counterbalance that destructive force of fire with the force of sustenance that's water, or the force of stability and existence that's earth.
Okay.
The source gives this example of a leader fighting a just war. That's using fire, right? To destroy evil in the world.
Excellent.
But to limit that same destructive principle in their own soul, so it doesn't take over, they also have to actively provide for people elsewhere, sustain them, using the principle of water.
So destroying here, but building and sustaining over there.
Exactly. That balance is key. It keeps the inner fire contained, directed only where it needs to be. The insight here is that these inner forces, especially one as strong as fire, need specific element-based boundaries. It's not just about being a generally good person. It's about actively counterbalancing destruction with sustenance or stability.
Now, you mentioned two ways to counterbalance water and earth. Does that mean fire destroys in different ways too, requiring different kinds of countermeasures?
Yes, exactly. There's a deeper distinction within that destructive aspect. Fire can destroy in two main ways, and they connect to water and earth.
Okay.
It can destroy chayud vitality. That corresponds to attacking the water element.
Vitality,
Yeah.
life energy.
Yeah, think of it like cutting off supplies. Food, fuel, power. The source gives depression or deep sadness, dikon etzvut, as a really profound example of this.
Wow.
It's fire consuming the water, the aliveness, the vigor. The person still exists, their earth is there, but they lack that energy, that flow, the aliveness is gone.
Okay, I see. A draining of energy, a loss of like inner juice. What's the other type?
The other type is destroying kiyum existence itself.
Existence.
Yeah, this corresponds to attacking the earth element. This is more like complete obliteration, like throwing a bomb at the foundation.
That sounds much more final.
It is. And the source uses suicidal thoughts, marshavat shel avdan, as the example here.
Oh, wow.
That's fire consuming earth. The desire for one's very being, one's fundamental existence, to just stop entirely.
That's a heavy but really clear distinction. So understanding what the fire is trying to burn down, vitality or existence, tells you exactly how to counter it.
Precisely. If the fire is consuming vitality or water-based destruction, you need to counter it by actively giving vitality, strengthening the water element.
Like providing support, encouragement, maybe resources.
Could be, yes. And if the fire is consuming existence, an earth-based destruction you counter by strengthening the earth element, giving stability, reinforcing the reality and the value of existence itself.
So the remedy has to match the specific type of fire damage.
Exactly. The insight is that the fix depends specifically on what's under attack.
Okay, but what about that third type of fire? The negative one, the one consuming good unnecessarily? You said that needs to be extinguished, not just limited.
Right, that's the crucial difference. When fire is misdirected, when it's burning down good things that should remain, just building something good elsewhere isn't enough.
Like the stealing and giving charity example, that doesn't fix the original act.
Exactly. That doesn't correct the source of that destructive fire within you. For that, you need to apply water or earth sustenance or stability directly to the very place the fire is trying to destroy.
So if the fire is, say, a destructive urge aimed at tearing down a specific relationship or maybe a project,
then the correction isn't just, go be nice to someone else. The real fix, the extinguishing of that specific destructive impulse, requires actively giving sustenance or support, water or earth, to that very person or thing you wanted to tear down.
Wow.
The source says this is really hard work, fighting your own impulse by actively building up the thing it wants to destroy.
That's difficult. The insight there is almost like fortifying the enemy's position, but within your own soul.
That's a good way to put it. Fortifying what your negative fire wants to obliterate.
Okay, let's pivot back slightly to the second type of fire, the one consuming good, but for the sake of ascent. This is the potentially positive one, right? The drive to improve.
Yes, that's the energy behind not being satisfied with where you are, aspiring for something higher.
Yeah.
But, and the source points this out clearly, there's a big danger here too.
Oh, what's the danger with positive fire?
If this fire gets too strong, if it completely consumes or devalues your current state, if you start thinking, what I have now is worthless, it has to be obliterated before I can move on, then you risk losing your ground, your earth. In your source of vitality, your water, before you've actually reached that next level.
Like selling your apartment before you've even found a new one, let alone bought it.
Exactly like that. You need somewhere to stand, right?
Yeah.
Something to draw strength from, even while you're reaching for the next thing.
So with this positive, growth-oriented fire, you need to kind of Hold the rope at both ends.
That's a great way to put it. Hold the rope at both ends, use the fire to aim higher, feel that pull upwards, but also maintain the earth. Recognize your current level exists. It provides a foundation. It has some value.
And maintain the water.
And maintain the water. Allow yourself to get some vitality, some strength from where you are right now. Don't completely annihilate the lower level in your mind, even as you strive beyond it.
So the insight is that growth isn't about erasing where you are, it's about building from it.
Exactly. Building on it, not burning it down entirely before the next structure is up.
The source does mention some rare exceptions, though, people who can manage without that base.
Yes, very rare individuals. Maybe relying purely on incredible inner strength or resilience or just immense faith.
Mm-hmm.
They might momentarily exist without that immediate grounding or obvious vitality,
Mm-hmm.
sustained only by the hope or the sheer belief in that next level.
But for most of us.
For most of us, that base, that earth and water from our current level, is pretty necessary for a sustainable climb.
Okay. Let's look at fire's relationship with the other elements again, specifically spirit.
Ruach.
That's about movement, right?
Right. Spirit ruach is a force of movement, flow, and spirit can facilitate movement in, well, any direction, sideways, down, around.
But fire, as we've established, is naturally focused upwards?
Yes, ascent. That's its primary direction.
Okay.
And the source says that fire can actually choke the spirit.
Choke it? How?
Well, because fire is so intensely focused on upward movement, it struggles to see value in any other kind of movement. So if your inner fire, that intense drive for ascent, for improvement becomes too dominant, you might start to devalue or even negate anything in yourself or in others that isn't actively striving up, according to your definition.
So you wouldn't invest energy in it?
Yep.
Or see the point?
Exactly. You might not see the purpose in other kinds of movement or even states of just being if they don't fit your specific idea of upward progress.
This sounds like that example the source uses about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai leaving the cave.
It's a really powerful illustration of this exact point, yes.
He was in this place of intense spiritual ascent, right? Deep focus.
For years. So when he and his son first came out, their perspective was so dominated by that intense inner fire, that upward focus, that they genuinely struggled to see the value in people just living ordinary lives, building, planting, not constantly focused on that same kind of intense spiritual striving they had just experienced.
And their gaze would sort of consume them and validate them.
That's the description, yes. Their intense focus, their fire, saw these other activities as lacking purpose because they weren't ascending in that specific, intense way.
Because they weren't living life exactly like him, focused only on that upward path he understood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the world, as the source points out, obviously has movement and purpose in all directions, not just the narrow definition of up.
Right.
So an unchecked fire perspective really struggles to accept that reality. In others, and maybe even in parts of ourselves that need different kinds of movement, like rest or reflection or just connecting sideways with people.
So how do you fix that? How do you temper fire's tendency to choke the spirit? How do you learn to accept movement in yourself and others that isn't just up?
Well, the correction involves consciously working to accept that movement, and even just existence has value even if it isn't constantly ascending according to your personal internal fire meter.
Okay.
It means learning to accept others who aren't on the same intense upward path, or maybe just not at the same pace.
That sounds challenging, especially if your own fire is strong.
It is. And the source actually cautions that you need to approach this carefully, because accepting, say, downward or sideways paths in others might tempt your own fire drive to weaken, and you might end up descending yourself.
So maybe it's safer to work on this after you've built a really strong foundation for your own ascent.
That seems to be the implication, yes. Establish your own strong upward trajectory first.
Are there specific ways the source suggests framing this acceptance so it doesn't feel like you're just compromising your own growth?
Yes, it gives two main ways to think about it. The first is Yerida L'Sorek Elia.
Descent for the sake of ascent.
Right. Viewing any non-ascending movement, maybe a pause, a step back, a different direction in yourself or someone else, as actually a necessary step towards an ultimate ascent.
Oh, okay. Like rolling a car back down the hill a little bit just to get a running start to climb higher?
Exactly that kind of idea. It reframes the seemingly non-upward movement as still being part of the larger journey towards ascent. It keeps ascent as the ultimate goal, but allows for more varied movements along the way.
So the perceived detour or step back is actually just part of the bigger climb.
Right. That's one way. The second approach goes even deeper. It's about accepting divine purpose.
Divine
Yeah,
purpose.
recognizing that the Creator's plan for the world, for reality, includes all sorts of movements and states of being that are just way beyond our limited human understanding.
Hmm.
And they aren't solely focused on our personal fire-driven idea of what upward means.
So, like, we don't understand the ultimate purpose of why, say, a specific plant exists or a distant galaxy.
Exactly. We accept they have a purpose within the larger creation, even if we don't grasp it. In the same way, we can accept that other people's diverse paths, their different ways of moving and being, also have a profound purpose, a validity within the bigger cosmic picture.
Even if it doesn't look like Ascent to us.
Even if we can't see how it fits our model, this allows the spirit, the force of movement, to operate in all its directions beyond our limited upward-only view because we accept there's a higher purpose guiding it all.
That's a really powerful thought, accepting that not all movement has to fit my definition of up to have value and purpose.
It really is. It's a way to temper that fire's intensity without extinguishing its positive drive. And it allows the spirit to express itself more fully, more authentically, in all its varied ways.
So the insight is that real wisdom means seeing value even in paths that don't look like our own.
I think that's a huge part of it, yeah.
Okay. So we've really taken a deep dive today into this element of fire in the soul. We've explored its power to destroy both for growth and sometimes, unfortunately, for ill.
And how the other elements, water and earth, can be used to limit it or even extinguish its negative side when needed.
And we looked at its complex, sometimes tricky relationship with spirit, the force of movement, how fire wants up, but spirit moves everywhere.
Yeah. And understanding this fire within us, it really helps you see the energy behind your own drives, doesn't it? Your aspirations for growth.
Definitely. But also maybe your frustrations or anger or even judgmental feelings when things or people don't seem to be moving up fast enough.
Exactly. It can be behind all of those.
And it just highlights this really delicate, active balance that's required. You need to harness this incredibly powerful force for growth, but without letting it just burn out valuable parts of yourself or consume the different paths others are on.
It really requires a deep understanding, seeing the different ways fire works and having the wisdom to apply the right counterbalance.
Yeah.
Sometimes containment, sometimes giving vitality, sometimes giving stability.
And sometimes direct extinguishing, like you said, for that negative fire.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Well, considering all of this, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder until our next deep dive.
Okay.
If fire is fundamentally about this drive for ascent, and it struggles inherently to accept movement that isn't upward, what does it mean for our own potential growth when we learn to genuinely accept the validity of different paths, for ourselves and for others?
That's interesting.
Does embracing that full spectrum of spirit's movement, all those directions, does that somehow unlock a deeper, maybe more complex kind of ascent in the end?